Quick disclaimer before we start. The title says hot sauce. There is no chili anywhere in this story. None. And yet, a Roman philosopher named Seneca once said this particular sauce, very literally, burns through your stomach with its salted rot. No spice required for that kind of heat. So whatever you're picturing right now, a little bottle of Tabasco, a sriracha bottle with a rooster on it, forget it. That's the flavor profile we're working with today. Meet garum, the single most expensive condiment trend in the ancient Roman world, more valuable than almost anything except perfume. Rich Romans gifted bottles of it at festivals. Soldiers got a watered-down version mixed into their rations, and the entire thing was made from rotting fish guts, left to ferment in the sun for up to 3 months, in an open clay vat, basically in public. Here's the recipe, and it really is a recipe, not just vibes. Take fish, mackerel, tuna, anchovies, eel, whatever the day's catch happened to be. Don't bother gutting it. The guts, the blood, the gills, that's the actual main ingredient, not the waste. Dump everything into a massive clay vat, then bury it in salt. A lot of salt. Leave it baking under direct sun for anywhere from a week to 3 months, stirring it by hand every so often. Take a moment to sit with that image. Heat and enzymes slowly break the whole mass down into liquid. A thin, amber-brown layer rises to the top. You skim that off, strain it, and that's the finished product. Whatever sludge is left at the bottom got sold cheap, mostly to people who couldn't afford the good stuff. These factories were always built outside the city walls, not for the view. The smell of rotting fish fermenting under the Mediterranean sun was bad enough that neighbors filed actual complaints, the ancient version of reporting a chemical plant to the city council. And this wasn't a small cottage operation. Coastal towns from Spain to North Africa built entire industrial districts around it, rows of vats called sateriae, with workers hand-mixing rotting fish in the heat for a living. Imagine that job interview. Not everyone got the same product either. The fancy stuff went into small, sealed jars for elite dinner tables. But Pompeii has also turned up jars specifically marked as kosher garum, made without the non-kosher seafood that went into the standard batch, suggesting there was an entire separate supply chain just to keep Rome's Jewish population happy. Garum apparently came in a religiously approved edition too. So here's the twist this story is supposed to deliver. Garum isn't actually rotten fish. Salt doesn't let meat decompose the normal way. It triggers a controlled fermentation instead of plain decay. It's the exact same chemistry behind Vietnamese nuoc mam and Thai fish sauce, which, statistically, is probably already sitting in your kitchen. So yes, the factory smelled genuinely apocalyptic. But the finished product is basically an ancestor of soy sauce, not a corpse in a bottle. Somebody just forgot to explain that part to Seneca. And Romans put this stuff on absolutely everything. Meat, fish, boiled vegetables, even dessert. There's a recorded recipe pairing garum with honey in a nut cake. Soldiers got it diluted into their water rations. Doctors prescribed it too. Pliny recommended garum for dysentery, earaches, and, somehow, dog bites. So this was simultaneously Rome's ketchup, Rome's soy sauce, and Rome's cough syrup. One bottle, every problem. And it was absurdly expensive. The premium grade was called Garum sociorum, produced near what's now Cartagena in Spain. Pliny the Elder records that about 6 liters of it sold for 1,000 sesterces. 1,000 sesterces happened to be a Roman legionary's annual salary. So picture this. You serve in the army for a full year, risk your life on the frontier, and your entire paycheck buys you exactly 1 bottle of fish sauce. Translate that into today's money, and it's roughly like handing over your entire annual salary for a single bottle of condiment, one that also happens to smell like a crime scene. Pliny, for what it's worth, was a true believer. He seriously compared the smell of the best garum to the finest perfumes money could buy. Not everyone agreed. The poet Martial wrote an entire set of gift tag poems for Garum sociorum sold at Saturnalia, describing one bottle as made from, quote, the first blood of a dying mackerel, still breathing its last. That's not a horror movie line. That was the marketing copy. Martial also used garum as his go-to insult. In one epigram, he tells a woman she smells worse than a jar of rotting fish sauce. In ancient Rome, "You smell like garum" was apparently a real thing you could say to someone's face. Now, meet the man who actually got rich off this. Aulus Umbricius Scaurus, a former slave who became one of the wealthiest men in Pompeii entirely through fish guts. He built himself a seafront villa, complete with a private bath complex, and in the entryway floor, he installed a mosaic of his own garum jars, labeled with slogans like "the finest fish sauce" and "top quality, straight from the factory." This man tiled an advertisement for his own product directly into his front hall, 2,000 years before anyone invented brand merchandise. And it worked. He became one of the richest people in town. Then, Vesuvius froze the whole story for 2,000 years, but before that, garum had already conquered the empire. Amphorae stamped with producers' names and trademarks have turned up as far away as Britain, Gaul, and the Danube frontier, meaning Roman soldiers stationed at the edge of the known world were still getting their fish gut sauce shipped in from Spain. This was, genuinely, one of the most successful branded food products in human history, 2,000 years before anyone coined the word branding. In one Pompeii building, the eruption caught a garum factory mid-shift. In 2009, archaeologists found sealed jars still holding the remains of fish that were being salted at the exact moment disaster struck. Based on the fish species and pollen evidence inside those jars, researchers were able to pin down the season of the eruption to late summer, lining up perfectly with the eyewitness account written by Pliny the Younger. Fish guts help scientists date the end of the world for an entire city. And the funniest part of all this is that garum is back. Researchers at the universities of Cadiz and Seville found charred garum residue in Pompeii's actual garum shop, and, working from a recipe dated to the 3rd century, chemically reconstructed the sauce, the first scientific recreation of it in modern history. They named it Flor de Garum, and it's sold today in amphora-shaped glass bottles. Food historian Sally Granger, who has spent years cooking from ancient Roman recipe books, says the modern version tastes nothing like the description sounds. Barely any fishy smell. Just an intensely concentrated, savory umami flavor, closer to a good fish sauce, or even the closest living relative of Garum sociorum, a Japanese sauce called ishiri, made from fermented squid blood and guts in a tradition that's over 300 years old, and which tasters describe the exact same way: dark, iron-rich, and almost no fish smell at all. So here's where Rome landed. They invented a soy sauce ancestor made from mackerel blood and intestines, priced it above perfume, built entire fortunes on it, shipped it to the edges of the empire, used it as medicine, used it as an insult, and still complained non-stop about the smell coming from the neighbor's factory. 2,000 years later, you can buy a scientifically reconstructed version of it online and pour it straight into your paella. No Vesuvius required. Would you put fermented fish gut paste on your toast? Let me know in the comments. And if you think this is the worst thing humans have ever willingly eaten on purpose, stick around, because that title gets a new contender in basically every video on this channel.